In 2015, the Chang family commanded a $5,900,000,000 fortune, ranking them among the wealthiest immigrants in the history of the United States. They arrived in Los Angeles with only $11,000 and no English proficiency, yet built a fast fashion brand that defined an entire generation. Please comment discipline if you value hard work and its role in building legacy. The strategic philosophy of Forever 21 was forged in the turbulent aftermath of the Korean War, where survival was the only metric. Chang reframed the garment industry by prioritizing extreme speed and mass accessibility over the slow elitism of traditional fashion houses. He believed that aspiration should be a commodity available to every young person, regardless of their socio-economic status or geographic location today. By printing the John 3:16 verse on the bottom of every iconic yellow bag, the family merged global commerce with quiet evangelism. This created a brand soul that felt personal and purposeful, even as the business scaled to 800 stores in 48 different nations. They reframed fashion as a high-speed cycle where customers could stay 21 forever through a constant stream of new inventory. The soul of the subject was defined by absolute family control and the total rejection of every offer for listing or dilution. Unlike competitors who sought outside capital to fund their rapid growth, the Changs maintained 99% equity in the entire empire. This strategic independence allowed them to move at a speed that stunned the industry and captured the hearts of millions of teenagers. They believed the family unit was the ultimate strategic advantage in a world obsessed with quarterly earnings and public shareholder dividends. By reinvesting every dollar of profit back into the expansion of operations, they built a fortress that seemed impenetrable for several successful decades. The Changs were not just selling clothes, they were selling the American dream through the lens of a relentless immigrant effort. This philosophy of absolute authority meant every decision was deeply personal. Chang reframed the mall shopping experience as a theatrical event for the masses who wanted luxury style on a budget. The family soul was rooted in the discipline of reinvestment and the refusal to participate in the consumer lifestyle they sold others. They lived in Beverly Hills, but the focus remained in the store. The financial engine of the Chang Empire was a masterclass in capital concentration and massive operating leverage through prime real estate. At their peak, the company generated $4,400,000,000 annually, while maintaining private ownership. This technical analysis reveals a machine optimized for fast cash flow and aggressive mall expansion tactics. Compounding occurred through the constant recycling of profits into new anchors. Chang personally approved every single real estate lease agreement, even after the company surpassed 500 global store locations. He scrutinized the expense reports of executives down to lunch receipts, ensuring that the financial machine remained lean and focused on growth. This micromanagement was a technical moat that protected the company from the bloat that often destroys large and rapidly expanding retailers. The financial engine was fueled by the strategy of acquiring anchor spaces vacated by bankrupt department stores like Saks and Dillard's. By occupying these 90,000 square foot spaces at favorable lease rates, they achieved a scale that made competitors look like small boutiques. Their Times Square flagship spanned 4 massive floors with over 150 fitting rooms to process massive customer volumes daily. They leveraged their 99% stake to bypass the scrutiny of Wall Street and the demands of public market analysts today. This allowed for a strategic focus on long-term market dominance rather than short-term margins or public image management. The financial engine was a self-sustaining ecosystem where family loyalty was the primary currency and the ultimate driver of global expansion today. The machine reached a peak valuation of $6 billion before fundamental shifts in mall traffic began to erode the entire foundation. Revenue peaked as the family reinvested in flagship store monuments to honor the fast fashion ambition they had brought to the world. The technical analysis shows a machine designed for speed and volume. But this machine lacked the cooling system of institutional governance today. The flagship stores featured marble floors, chandeliers, and curving staircases today. They were monuments to the fast fashion ambition of the family. Technical analysis reveals a machine designed for mass market saturation. The reinvestment of profit allowed expansion without diluting founder control. By occupying anchor spaces, they dominated the physical mall landscape. This financial engine was a masterpiece of private capital and concentration. The crucible and failure for the Chang family began in the war-torn streets of South Korea during the 1950s. Do-won grew up in extreme poverty, running a small coffee delivery business as a child to support his struggling family. He arrived at Los Angeles Airport in 1981 with limited English and a green card earned through many sacrifices. The first 3 years in America demanded a superhuman effort, seeing him work 3 simultaneous jobs for 19 hours every single day. His mornings began washing dishes at a cafe before the dawn. Afternoons were spent pumping gas, while nights ended cleaning office buildings. The critical insight happened at the gas station, when he noticed that the nicest cars were all driven by people in fashion. This observation led to opening Fashion 21 with only $11,000 in savings and a small storefront space. The crucible of those early years taught them that every dollar represented a sacrifice and every garment was an opportunity to survive. By analyzing the success of local manufacturers, they built a moat of curiosity that allowed them to multiply their initial revenue today. Please comment your own experience with setbacks in the section below. Do you believe that the humble beginnings of an empire provide the stamina required for long-term survival? Or do they create the ultimate blind spots that lead to total systemic failure? The Changs proved that obsession can build an empire. But sources suggest that same obsession can eventually destroy the legacy built through effort. The competitive moat of Forever 21 was built on a supply chain speed that turned concepts into garments in record time. While traditional retailers planned their seasons months in advance, the Changs could identify a trend on the runway and have it stocked. This secret source of imitation and speed allowed them to dominate the teen market with designs that were both trendy and affordable. This moat was protected by over 50 copyright infringement lawsuits, showing a consistent pattern of producing identical versions of designer items. By offering luxury aesthetics at a fraction of the original price point, they captured a demographic that valued style over brand heritage. This allowed them to dominate the local fashion district and build networks of suppliers that were deeply tied to the interests of family. Their secret also included the strategic use of Christian identity to build trust and community among their massive global consumer base. The John 3:16 bags were a psychological moat that separated the brand from the anonymous corporate entities of the fashion world. Competitors could not easily replicate this blend of faith and fast fashion without appearing insincere or purely transactional in marketing efforts. Their management principle of absolute family authority ensured the brand soul remained intact across decades of rapid and aggressive global growth. However, this moat eventually became a cage when the founders refused to listen to the experts they had hired for technical advice. The same discipline that created early success led to a hubris that ignored fundamental changes in the global digital landscape today. The global adaptation of Forever 21 was a financial catastrophe driven by a 37-fold increase in store count in a decade. International operations lost an average of $100 million annually from 2014 to 2018 as the bubble began to burst. They misunderstood local markets by opening German stores but closing on Sundays and ignoring the structurally high wage standards of Europe today. Data was the primary point of failure for the Chang family. They hired world-class consultants from McKinsey and Bain to provide strategic roadmaps for the modernization of their massive inventory systems. The founders implemented only 15% of the recommendations they received. They ignored expert advice to pause European expansion and centralize their buying model, leading to rental costs that were bloated and uncontrollable. Digital strategy was equally disastrous. as e-commerce only generated 16% of total sales, while industry leaders captured 40% margins. Online inventory was completely invisible in physical stores, creating a massive disconnect between the digital and physical retail experience for consumers. The supply chain took 20 weeks to deliver a new concept, while the industry standard for fast fashion was only 13 weeks. Invite you to subscribe to Old Money Habits 7 for more. We explore the strategic habits of the global elite and the systems that allow empires to survive or fail across generations. Join our community of analysts as we decode the architectural secrets of generational wealth and the discipline required for long-term survival. Learn how to avoid the traps of hubris and institutional failure. They ignored recommendations to reduce the supplier base from 200. The decentralized model was maintained even as costs hit 400 million. Locations in Spain and Belgium were abandoned after heavy losses in 16. Thailand and Japan followed as the international footprint began to collapse. They misunderstood the fundamental shift toward digitally native brands like Fenty. Expansion was a financial disaster that bled $10 million monthly. The legacy of the Chang family was compromised by the total failure of succession and the absence of a board of directors. Linda and Esther were groomed for leadership with degrees from top universities, but they operated as subordinates rather than true executive VPs. Duan never relinquished decision-making authority over real estate leases or capital expenditures, despite the growing complexity of the global empire. Family principles were further eroded when parents borrowed $10 million from the personal trusts of their daughters at low interest rates. This unsecured loan created a catastrophic conflict of interest during the bankruptcy proceedings that eventually liquidated the entire family business empire. The daughters were forced to subordinate their fiduciary duties to family loyalty, which ultimately resulted in them recovering only pennies on dollar. The corporate constitution of Forever 21 was a self-created bubble where founders stopped paying attention to anything contradicting their beliefs. They treated a $4 billion global empire like a small cleaning business from the early Los Angeles days 3 decades ago. Without the reality check provided by a board, the hubris of success led to a total systemic and financial collapse today. Please comment on meritocracy or inheritance in the section below today. Do you believe that children should earn their own power, or is the family name enough to guarantee a board seat? The Chang daughters were positioned as successors, but were never given the autonomy to save the company from their parents' mistakes. The lack of governance destroyed the legacy of the yellow bags. The failure in governance was institutionalized by the rejection of experts. The family maintained absolute voting power while the bubble was bursting. They ignored data showing fundamental shifts in the youth demographic today. The legacy of the yellow bags was tied to an old world. Succession was a formal title without any real transfer of power. This architectural failure point led to the final liquidation event today. The architectural synthesis of the Chang family story reveals that hunger builds empires, but hubris is what eventually destroys them in the end. From a historical perspective, we can see that the Chang family became victims of their own absolute and total family control systems. Sustainable wealth requires a transition from founder-led culture to a system of professional and institutionalized governance, combined with expert data. Expert recommendations suggest that any family building an empire must establish a board of directors long before the bubble begins to burst. Do not let early successes blind you to the changes in the world around you or the advice of the experts. Old money habits are about the management of systems rather than the micromanagement of every single lunch receipt or Uber fare. This content is for educational and historical reference purposes only and does not constitute financial or legal advice of any kind here. We analyze the strategic habits of the global elite to help you improve your own lives through studying durable systems today. The Chang story is a cautionary tale about the price of inherited ambition when it is not supported by professional management. We are grateful for your time and your participation in this. Improve our lives together by studying the architecture of global wealth. The yellow shopping bags may be gone, but the lessons remain. 7. True security is found in the discipline of listening to experts. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in next. Continue building your legacy with the wisdom of old money habits. The story of Forever 21 is a lesson in governance. Ownership is not enough to protect a legacy from fundamental shifts. Improve your life by studying the small details of these systems. The Changs built an empire from a gas pump but failed. They stopped paying attention to the world changed around their malls. Always be ready to listen to the experts you have hired. The yellow shopping bags are now a memory for a generation. The Bible verses printed on the bottom live only in history. The stores that once occupied entire mall wings now stand empty, waiting for the next tenant to take over those massive spaces. Improve your life by studying these complex global wealth systems today. Thank you for joining us for this strategic elite analysis today.